So, welcome to episode number 4. This is Kasie and Jodie here with you on our podcast website, YouTube channel thing we're doing called Earning Mileage. This episode is called Boring Equals Bankrupt. And we started the show notes for this a few weeks ago, but then as things have ramped up with the coronavirus isolation and everybody being at home, I kind of wanted to start with that because there's a ton of marketing right now of people telling me what they can do for me while I'm stuck at home. And everybody's offering online classes, they're offering workshops, they're offering meetups, like virtual meetups. There are some companies that are making a lot of progress right now. And then there's others that are just adding to the noise. So I wanted to know, people have been asking me, what do you think you can do? Should you keep marketing? Number one, you had a marketing plan, you were working this marketing plan. Should you keep that marketing plan? And then number two, the question was well, how do you separate yourself from the noise, right?
Yeah. It seems right now that every company that I have ever done any work with at all has all hired the same marketing person. And they're selling maybe 3 commercials or pieces of copy. The first one is in these trying times. The second, in these challenging times. And my third and most favorite, because it makes me the most angry, is as we get through our new normal. I'm like, this isn't normal. Stop buying that. There's nothing to really stay in my house every day to work. But now that I don't have the freedom to go beyond my driveway, it's a little off-putting. Yeah. But I'm starting to crack up over here. Really.
Well, and you're not alone. I think there are a lot of people who are feeling that way. And what's interesting about those messages that you mentioned, the first two, that in the trying times and in the challenging times, right? Trying is an empathetic plea, right? Like we feel sad too. And challenging is sort of a rally around the flag, like we can do this sort of messaging. And both of those messages, I get where they're coming from. I respect where they're coming from, but they're also incredibly annoying. In that I feel like if you don't have something to offer me right now that is of value to me, I don't even know why you're messaging me. And a lot of the businesses that are sending me messages, I haven't talked to them in years. I'm not going to buy anything from them. I'm not going to go see them. The car dealership has been telling me that I need to come in and do something with my car. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So a lot of times these messages are coming from people, I think they're well-meaning, but they're not relevant to me at all. And the number one rule of marketing is be relevant and be useful, because if you're not, you're just part of the noise.
Right. So I think maybe there might not be like a golden ticket or a key to this. But perhaps there are some pretty good guidelines. The first one being, if you're wondering if you're part of the noise, look out at and this applies any time of the year. If you're saying the same thing that everybody else is, especially if your business is online based, and you're trying to get all those SEO keywords in and hit all the buzzwords and everything, chances are you're still going to be bottom of the list as far as search engines, because you don't have the million subscribers that Amazon and all these other gigantic companies do. So if you're just plugging along with the same verbiage, the same message, the same content as everyone else is, you're part of the noise. The second thing is when, because I in no part believe that when we get through this crisis, another one won't be close behind.
Eminent. Eminent.
Yeah. So as some of you may know, my master's degree is in school counseling, and a big part as a high school counselor, a big part of my job was working on the crisis team, because that's so important in schools today, school shootings and suicide and things like that. You have to have a well-defined crisis team with very defined directives. If you're not part of the solution, get out of the way.
Yes.
So a part of this with our crisis team, we had a few students that required EpiPens. The EpiPens had to be refrigerated. And so the EpiPens were kept in a refrigerator in a specific counselor's office. Whenever a student would go down and need an EpiPen, everyone on the crisis team was to get out of Dan's way, because Dan, and that meant don't stand close to that student. Dan was going to come flying down the hall with an EpiPen already ready to jab that kid in the leg. I mean,
Right.
It was serious time. We would drill this. So if we're not part of the solution, we have to get out of the way. And that means that what we should be focused on right now is getting, companies that can provide human beings with the necessities. Part of that necessity is information. And so we need to give people the information that they need to not be scared and to continue living their lives. The company that I bought my husband's logo stamp from, who sent me a message this morning to assure me that I would get through this crisis, but if I needed any stamps, that they would send me one for 10% off. I was like, you know what? Get the hell out of my inbox. Like, no, get out of my way. The second thing I think can differentiate us from the noise during times of crisis is one thing people will need once all of those basic needs are met. So food, shelter, health, love. I can't remember what the fifth one is. We need escape.
Yeah.
We need content that helps us pass the time and escape. And that's where I want people to look at what kind of content are you putting out? Are you just putting out the same message that everybody else is? Or are you putting out that hilarious, never seen before meme that will make me laugh for 5 minutes? And then another 5 minutes later in the night when I think of it again. That, I'm like, okay, if you just want to keep on people's minds, help them laugh.
Well, there's an opportunity. I think we have an opportunity to differentiate your brand when there's so much noise out there. And the rule for differentiating your brand is not any different in a time of a lot of noise than it is in a time of very little noise. Regular marketing that you've been doing, if that marketing is on point, it's because it's authentic. It's because it represents you and what you can do for your customer. Period. Yeah. And as long as that authenticity is there and that originality is there,
interesting kind of escapism content that we could actually use if you want to hear
it. Escapism content.
Yes. Okay. So we are a consultancy that focuses on writing and research and creating content and storytelling and all of that. So I'm going to look for a few pictures, just weird pictures, and ask, we'll put it out on Twitter and we'll ask people for a Twitter story. So in that 240 characters, they have to write a story for the picture. I think we're going to do that. Should we? Maybe?
We could try it.
We'll try it. My God, I also need, because I'm not allowed to leave my house, I have to fill more time with things with my brain. And I think we do need to keep the brand going, but I refuse to write the words in these trying times.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think this occurs to me when I go to conferences and one-day events and that kind of thing, and I'm going to table as a vendor at one of these events, and I always bring a scavenger hunt with me. And I look at who's going to be coming to the event, and then I create these bingo boards, and I'll have 5 or 6 different bingo boards that have all the different names of all the vendors and other things that are like, somebody with red shoes, somebody wearing a bow tie, that sort of thing. And I'll give out the bingo boards as people come to the table. And if they bring them back and they have found all these things, then I'll give them a prize. And to me, it's just a matter of making myself differentiated among all these other vendors that are there. I gave the people a game. They were going to be trapped here anyway, so here's some activity they can do. But the game was also a way way for them to go around and do the work they were meant to do while they were there, which is to find other people and to connect with other people. Now, of course, we don't have the ability to do that now because we're all stuck at home, but thinking along those lines, if we were to do a digital game that got people involved and gave them a chance to interact with our brand, that's a way to differentiate ourselves among all the noise that's out there. So,
and that's something that I think companies should employ more often. As another thing that comes to mind when we think of boring and noise and that kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to forget whatever you just told me to buy in 2 seconds.
right.
I find it extremely inauthentic when companies repeat the same message that other companies are repeating.
It's Me Too marketing. It's that everybody else has said, hey, in these trying times, ... And so I also want to say in these trying times, ... And there's an argument to be made that maybe consumers are sitting at home going, well, I didn't hear from that stamp company, so I guess I won't be buying anything. That's probably not true. More than likely, you were not sitting at home wondering why the stamp company hadn't told you what they plan to do about coronavirus. You probably completely forgot about the stamp company. And so if they're going to send some kind of marketing, don't let it be the same boring message everybody else is sending. Gamify it, right? Give us something to try to do. Give us something to interest us. Give us something to laugh at, right? Some way to, and not in the same, this is kind of an edge too, right? Because there's a way to create humor in marketing where the humor is not irreverent, right? Where the humor is not making fun of the experience that people are having. There are people who are suffering right now. There are people who are really worried about what's going to happen with their job, with their health, with their family. There are people that can't get home to their home nation. They're trapped in one place or the other because of the global travel bans. Like there's a lot of fear happening right now. And you don't want to be irreverent about that kind of thing. But at the same time, people use humor as a coping mechanism and as a way of connecting with other people. And when we are so distanced like we are right now, like, man, put some humor into this. I'm looking for something in my inbox from my favorite business coach, which is Ash Ambridge, and she does the Middle Finger Project. That's her online coaching is all about complete and total irreverence. Like, just come out here and do it your way and be your authentic self. And she's the first person I found when I started Clemson Road Creative back in 2012. And I just latched on immediately. Like I believed in creating a brand that was representative of me. And when you came on board, I thought, let's do this together. Let's create, and I know it's still Clemson Road because I live on Clemson Road. But you've embraced it. You really have embraced Clemson Road. That's right. You have embraced Clemson Road, so that's great. But I think that the idea of how, like, your customers determine what your brand is, but they make that determination based on the messaging that you're putting out and the way that you are communicating to them. And so that's really, I've always wanted to be that way. I don't have the guts to do the Middle Finger Project. I mean, I'll drop some F-bombs, don't get me wrong, like in a good Zoom meeting and maybe in some of these videos, you'll hear that. But I'm not going to be like that blatantly profanity. So I have a lot of admiration for somebody who is that completely, although maybe it's a persona. I mean, it may very well be a persona.
I think of the marketing of The Woods at Barlow Bend, which was my first novel, and then how that marketing is going to evolve, very close to the same plan, honestly, but my voice as an author has evolved for my upcoming novel that's going to be out next. And so, whereas The Woods at Barlow Bend, even though the lead character is rather sassy, it's my grandmother, and so a lot of the marketing and the messaging that went along with Barlow Bend was like sweet and sassy. So it had a little of my grandmother's sass in it, but mostly it was about comforting and loving your family and doing what you need to do for yourself.
Right.
And this was important at the time in my life. And so I was very authentic and put myself out there. And I don't even edit myself very much. When I'm writing, I'll do maybe 3 or max 4 drafts, 4 run throughs. And then I send the text off, because what I want is for my voice to still be on the page. I want it to be a little bit raw. And I don't want to polish over all of those emotions. And so I did the same with the marketing, and set up to where I was doing a lot of author talks, so I could meet readers in person and tell them, this is why me as a woman, I had to write this woman's story.
Right.
So Bayou Cresting, I'm more sure of myself now. But I'm also older and angrier. So my sass has
got an edge to it. It's got an edge to it now.
It's become a little edgy. It's still, Southern sass, but now it's more like what's in the barbecue kind of sass,
right?
Or who's in the barbecue. Then, oh yes, we're gonna do this, ladies, on our own. Now it's, I'm gonna do this or die. Like it's anger. And so in the next few weeks, as I'm creating content for the marketing campaign for the launch of that book, that's the Jodie I'm going to be tapping into, is how have I evolved as a brand? And what that is for me is how have I evolved as a person?
Yeah.
I put that out there. And because I'm not your normal little, bookworm in a corner, just devouring whatever. I don't do that. I am screaming at whatever has just pissed me off. And then I go and write in a furious, rah, 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 rah. And so that's what I want to, I'm like, you know what? That's me. That's my truest self. I'm putting it out there.
It's funny that you say that, because so this next book, Bayou Cresting, is a series of stories from different perspectives, right? So you have different characters telling the story.
Yeah, they're all
interrelated. Yeah. And so my one character in After December is Brian, and he's this 22-year-old guy, which I think there's a little bit of me in Brian, a little bit of Brian and me, right? When I was marketing this, it didn't occur to me when I first got started marketing it that I would claim Brian as me. Like, I was very much like, no, I mean, that's just, it might be who I was at 22, but that's not who I am anymore. I'm not sure that's true, because to your point, the anger and the frustration that Brian feels, with a sense that things are out of his control and he doesn't know how to gain control, I feel that has come back around. Like, it's cyclical for me. And so now at 43, I turned 43 yesterday. At 43, I'm feeling the same sense of disenfranchisement and frustration. And I'm like you, I have that anger there too. And how does that show up in this next version of the next book, which is Before Pittsburgh? And as I'm writing Brian now, he can't be angry 43-year-old Kasie, but he's got to grow out of the anger he had in After December. And so that's been actually, interestingly for me, a little bit more cathartic than I would think. On the marketing side, the Gen X piece, I got to own it. There's no other Gen X. Nobody's out there saying they write Gen X literature. They might say, I wrote a book that takes place in the 90s. They might say, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, but they're not branding the literature Gen X literature. And that for me is what this is. And it's not just, I wrote a book that's about Gen X. It's like, this to me is it is a love letter to my generation growing up in the 90s and what it felt like to be there at that time. So
I think that is part of when you're tapping in to, how to make your brand interesting, how to make it not boring. I think you have to, tap into why you started your business in the first place, why you chose the product or service or knowledge that you're going to sell. And you need to keep that tension at the forefront. And that doesn't mean that your marketing needs to be angry or whatever, but it has to be your unique message. And that can't be the message that you think people want to hear. Well, I saw, I've come up with a new soda and I saw what Coca-Cola's doing, so I'm going to do what Coca-Cola does. we don't need another Coca-Cola. We already have them. We've got
Right.
cute snowmen and a penguin and everybody having Coke in the snow. Um, but that's weird, Coke in the snow. What I really want people to do is to consider, where in my business does my passion lie? And
Well,
then,
there's a trap though, and because I agree with you on the passion piece, but there's a trap where people create a personality brand with no substance behind it.
yeah, no,
Right, with no product, no service, no actual value behind it. And so there's a lot of like personal branding. Oh, I have purple hair. Oh, I'm going to get in your face. Oh, I'm going to be this and that. But like that's not still not providing value to your
no,
customers. It's still about what do your customers want and what do they need
right,
from you. And so being authentic is partly about myself being authentic, but it's mostly about showing my customers that they can get what they need from me
yeah,
because I am this thing that I'm telling you I'm going to be.
yeah. And I think when I create blogs for CRC, for our blog, um, that's one of the things I ask myself, what's like the one thing that I want to tell people about today? And what's something that I can offer them that will actually help, that will be valuable in their lives? Um,
Yes.
and then I make sure, honestly, that it's put together in a professional way, that there's no, typos, mistakes, all of that kind of stuff, because I also want our professionalism to be part of the brand.
Mhm.
Um, and I want our accuracy to be part of the brand. So I have to put all of these things in, and then you slap in a little sarcasm, a little humor, and a little touch of irreverence now and then I think you have the voice of CRC.
And the
Um,
storytelling piece. I mean, we're definitely about the storytelling side,
yeah,
and just about everything we put out there has those examples and has those stories in them. And I think we're getting even better at that. The more we write, the better we get at of finding the right stories to make the right points. All
yeah.
right. Boring equals bankrupt was the title of this episode. I'm not sure we talked much on the bankrupt side other than to say
Well,
you're messing
real
up if you're
quick,
doing it boring.
basically, if you're boring, your content online is not going to get noticed. It's going to just go out with the bathwater because people aren't going to notice it's there. So,
And they're not going to get anything from it. I mean, ultimately, the ones that stick with you are the ones that entertained you and then also taught you something usable, something that you can take forward for your own business or for your own, personal or whatever. There's a couple of links in the show notes to some blogs that got it right and a couple of links to some ones that we think crashed and burned. So go and check out the show notes there at clemsonroad.com. This has been episode 4 of Earning Mileage. It's just a little bit more about our experience and doing what we do. So thanks, Jodie Kane-Smith.
thanks, Kasie Weiser.
And we'll see you all on the next episode.